The earliest history of the North Melbourne Football Club is shrouded in mystery. We do know that back in 1869 and in the years that followed, the local lads played over in Royal Park on a stretch of land near the Melbourne Zoo. James Henry Gardner was then a 21-year-old and over half a century is credited with turning a fairly informal group of local lads into a streamlined side that would become a VFA powerhouse. From 1877 until 1887, the club played as Hotham until the municipality of North Melbourne was formed and made the Arden Street ground its home in 1882. This was the side that won the 1903 VFA Premiership. They had defeated Footscray in the grand final, then faced a challenge from minor premiers Richmond, then beat them with ease. And they'd win again the next year. North was not invited to join the 8 clubs who formed the VFL at the end of 1896. In 1907, the club made a concerted bid which failed to garner support and were promptly expelled from the VFA. When they returned as a powerhouse, winning the premierships in 1910, 14, 15 and 18. Along the way, they would string together undefeated seasons in 1915 and 1918, and at one stage win 49 games in a row. Stars like Sid Barker and Charlie Hardy and George Rawle were the cornerstone of North's successes. Again, they tried to break into the VFL in 1921 in a failed amalgamation with Essendon. But in 1925, the club finally succeeded and accepted an invitation to join Hawthorn and Footscray in the country's elite football competition, the all-powerful Victorian Football League.
So join in the chorus and sing it one and all. Join in the chorus.
From North's inception in the VFL in 1925 for a quarter of a century, the club was in today's vernacular a cellar dweller. There were 8 wooden spoons in 15 years, and then in 1945 under Bob McCaskill, a trip into the finals and a loss to eventual premiers Carlton. In 1949 the club finished on top of the ladder and was dispatched in straight sets, a semi-final loss to Carlton and a preliminary final loss to Essendon. In 1950, under Wally Carter, the club finished second and chipped out a bit of history by defeating Geelong in the preliminary final, the Roos' first ever finals triumph. The following week, in front of 87,000 at the MCG, Les Foot led his side into battle with Essendon.
We had a very strong backline. They had quite a reputation for toughness. We talk about the shin boner period, which I think was possibly before the 1950 era. And this half-back line, full-back should I say, half-back line, that was a solid base on which we worked. And as you know, the players that were in those positions, Jack McCorkle, Pat Kelly in the back pocket, across the half-back line, Teddy Gerrard, Reg Ryan and Les Reeves. Now they were a mean sort of back line and it stood to our stead.
Up against a mighty Essendon side with the great John Coleman.
Well, I suppose if I'm going to be honest, they had too many good players in positions. They had outstanding players in the fellow you just mentioned. They had Dick Reynolds, who didn't all contribute all that much at his advanced years, but they had Hutchie, they had Bluey McClure, all these fellows, and man for man, we were outnumbered, actually.
The Bombers, led by Dick Reynolds, were red-hot favourites to defend their title, and with Coleman at full forward and a side of champions, they kicked away early. Jock Spencer kicked 3 goals for the Roos and provided a great focal point at full forward. Les Foot was superb.
I don't think enough can be said about Les. He and I teamed together a lot, but he was mercurial in the things that he did. Things that I thought about in later life, how he got away with doing what he did. He'd get hold of the ball, put it in the face of an opponent who's momentarily stopped, it's moved around and off he was gone. Other times he had a blind turn. He was so talented with his hands, ball handling. He was a great basketballer and anything with a ball he was good at, Les.
Rod, Dine and Jarrod among the best. This was a day in which North had few answers against one of the great teams in history. For many at Arden Street, the thought of making the grand final was victory in itself. It would be 24 years before they would return to challenge again.
I thought that the fact that North Melbourne, having reached their first grand final might have received a little bit more prominence than what it has over the time. As I said earlier, later successes have swept right over that, and you can't deny those things. As Alan Aylett said, the North spirit goes on.
So join in the chorus and sing it one and all. Join in the chorus.
The 1958 final series, North and Collingwood meet in the preliminary final, and in the dying minutes, the Roos dynamic rover Alan Aylett would kick 3 of the Roos 6 last quarter goals in what would be a 20-point loss.
30 yards of the goal. Aylett, a good shot here and a through.
58 would be a magnificent year for the man in the number 17 Guernsey. He'd star in the Centenary Carnival in Melbourne, becoming the first Victorian player to win the Tassie medal on countback from his great mate Teddy Whitten. He was All-Australian, 4th in the Brownlow, and won the first of a hat-trick of Sid Barker medals as North Melbourne's champion player. In 1961, Aylett succeeded Albert Mantello as captain, was again All-Australian. Aylett would become the first Kangaroo to play 200 games, played 15 times for Victoria, and when he retired at the end of 1964, he'd played a club record 220 games, a record that would see him installed as an inaugural member of the AFL's Hall of Fame. There would be one twist to the Aylett story. In 1995, he would be invited to league headquarters to honour the gravely ill E.J. Whitten and drape a retrospective Tassie medal about the great man's neck. Teammates to the very end.